Hey guys. I'm going to get started here in just a second. All right, so here's the thing, my friends. There are a lot of people in the liberty movement, obviously, and there are a lot of organizations that don't know each other, and there's a lot of people that don't know each other. And one of the downsides to liberty is a lot of the people that advocate liberty kind of have a exclusive mentality where they want to stand alone, and we oftentimes find ourselves losing in battles to the more organized collectivists, where they have a tendency to work together easier, because people who love liberty have a tendency to stick to themselves, be self-reliant. So one of our virtues tends to work against us, and we've got to break down walls, and we've got to work together, and we've got to learn how to organize, and we've got to learn how to build relationships of trust, etc. And I see a lot of people out there doing that. Lately, I've been reaching out on behalf of the Free Capitalist Project and the American Liberty Society and the American Liberty League to other organizations, making contacts, etc. I want to call out the Patriots tonight, and I'm troubled by a couple things. And I particularly want to call out Gavin Seam. I don't know if any of you know him. I don't know Gavin. I haven't met Gavin, but I've been watching his videos lately related to the situation up in Oregon, and I want to talk to Gavin and his friends. I'm hoping maybe he'll reach out to me. I'm hoping this message will get to him. It's not just to Gavin, it's to many other supporters. I'll give you two different situations here that I want to talk about. When we advocate for liberty, my friends, if we look like a bunch of boneheaded idiots, we're going to get the response of a bunch of boneheaded idiots, right? Socialists also have their boneheaded idiots, but the socialist movement has upped its game. I mean, we've got people running for president of the United States as avowed socialists, who are winning primaries, and people are apologizing for them, meaning defending them, and yet we cannot have an avowed advocate for liberty. No avowed advocate for liberty has yet won a state primary. The closest is Ted Cruz, and Ted Cruz, while head and shoulders above many of the other candidates for president and the cause of liberty, is certainly not liberty-minded capitalist. And one of the things we've got to do to make truth popular, and to make liberty popular, and to make our cause popular, is we've got to discourage the boneheaded idiots who are our friends from just mouthing off at every corner. And we have to make a decision to up our game. We've got to make a decision to make sure that our passion and our drive to advocate for liberty is responsible and powerful enough to advocate with truth on our side. I'll give you an example. So I go on Facebook today, and there are two things get to me. One is a Facebook meme, and the other is a video from Gavin Seam about protesting how Ammon Bundy and friends up in Oregon are being held in solitary confinement. And I want to talk about both of those things, and I want to talk about upping our game. So the first one, and you'll see this if you go to the Free Capitalist Project on Facebook, there's a meme making its way around Facebook that is called the Licensing Liberty meme. Let me just see if I can show it to you here real quick. See if I can bring it up on my... Let's see. There you go. Licensing Liberty. And it's got these purported quotes from Supreme Court cases. No state shall convert a liberty into a license and charge a fee thereof. Supposedly from Murdoch v. Pennsylvania. Most people can recognize that's a court case, but a lot of you might not know that. So 319 U.S.105, that's a citation to a Supreme Court case. Same with the next one. It's a citation to a case called Shuttlesworth v. City of Birmingham, Alabama. And here's the situation. Those quotes sound great, right? As with many of the things you hear advocated, some of the books published and some of the things, but they're false quotes, they're fake, and they're exaggerations of the actual legal principles, and it really ticks me off, because we're not helping the cause for liberty by circulating something like that, and then your average mom or pop or your average young person is going to get that and print it out and go, holy crap, that's great, I'm going to save it, I'm going to put it on my phone, oh man, I want it to go viral, and I'm sure whoever created that, there's only two possibilities. They're a naive lover of liberty or one of our enemies who's kind of sowing a virus among us, because neither one of those quotes is true. Okay, and if you want to learn more about it, I put the actual explanation there on my Facebook timeline. But I actually went and looked up the case. I liked the quotes, right? And I'm a legal researcher. I'm a legal analyst by profession nowadays. So I'm like, well, how come I haven't seen that quote? I mean, it sounds close to what I've read, but it's not right. And so I go and read the Murdoch v. Pennsylvania case, which is a great case, particularly dealing with, tractors and pamphleteers who are distributing religious texts, some Jehovah's Witnesses who were basically stopped from proselyting because they didn't comply with the city in Pennsylvania's solicitation ordinance requiring a licensing fee and this kind of thing. And there's some cool quotes in that case. The case is fundamentally flawed because it puts religious liberty as some kind of different behavior than our commercial liberty. That's a whole different situation. But nevertheless, good case, lots of good quotes, but that quote's not in it. And so it's a false citation, it's a false quote, and it distorts the context. That there is no command by the Supreme Court that no state shall convert a liberty into a license. And then the next quote is not even in nothing close in the case of Shuttlesworth versus City of Birmingham. And so you go read that case, and again, that's a good case that does have to do with the cause of liberty, but that quote's nowhere in there. So you got to be careful, my friends. If you're going to spread something, just make a commitment to serve. A lot of people want to know, Rick, what can we do to help spread the cause of liberty? Okay, first one is don't be stupid. And if you're going to share something, I don't care whether it's a quote from Martin Luther King or a quote from me or your own personal, selection from wherever. Make sure when you advocate something that can stand the test of scrutiny. There are no shortcuts, my friend, to turning your brain on. And in the cause of liberty, we must wake up and turn our brain on. Now, second issue. So I saw this video today from Gavin, and let me just share a short segment of it with you. Okay, all right, so here's his video, okay? And in this video, Gavin is saying, hey, we got to get our solidarity together. Same message I'm talking about here. We've got to get together, and we've got to help our friends, our patriots who are in prison, right? And he wants to call the county sheriff and the Portland FBI, and they put this list together, and a list of people who are in jail. And he's basically saying, hey, let's get on the phone, let's get on the horn, and let's protest the fact that these people are being held in solitary confinement. Now, let me just explain this to you. Now, for those of you who don't know what's going on in Oregon, you're going to have to catch up some other place. But what's actually happening right now, sorry, I got to fix my chair here. What's actually happening right now in Oregon is these accused occupiers, Ammon Bundy, Ryan Payne, Pete Santilli, etc., the ones that have all been denied pretrial release, are being held in a county detention facility by the federal court's order. And according to reports, and Lisa Bundy just gave an interview, I think it was yesterday, maybe the day before, and then the word is starting to get around that these men are being held in solitary confinement 23 hours a day. One of the most severe forms, strict forms of incarcerations. And according to Lisa, there is some indication that perhaps these people aren't being given even a full hour of time out of their solitary confinement, and perhaps not even being given full access to their other rights, etc. I was very disturbed to learn that. But let me tell you, when I saw this video from Gavin, it caused me to think a little bit. See, I like Gavin. I've been watching him. Again, I don't know him. He's real passionate. He's got a good voice. He bills himself as a liberty speaker. If Gavin, if you ever get this message, I'd love to sit down with you and as brothers, put together a strategy to maybe employ your talents in a way that are strategically even better than what you've already done. But my friend and my friends, there's a problem with your advocacy. Having a bunch of people get real upset and call the district court or call the sheriff's office, I understand the disruption it can create. And I understand how in politics disruption can cause conversation. And I'm not against that. And so I'm not suggesting we ought not to have people calling these numbers. But when we have them calling these numbers, we ought to have them saying something that has more gravitas, more chance of actually winning, more chance of actually making a success than just, hey, we don't like it and we won't stand for it. We've got to have some say. Let me just tell you what I'm talking about. See, here's the thing. I just checked on the federal docket. I just pulled it up, okay? And some of you don't know how to do that. And I just pulled up the actual detention orders, okay? And I'm going to show you. Sorry for the white screen. There it is. Okay, so this is the detention order for Ammon Bundy. And this was the order that was entered on January 29th. And it says, on motion of the government involving an alleged risk to safety and a serious risk that defendant will flee, and a finding that no conditions will ensure his appearance because of prior criminal history, we've got to see what that is, right, and the nature of the charged offense. And same with no condition will assure the safety of other people. So I'm looking at this, right, and then you go down here to the bottom of the order, and I read the order. This is the court's order, okay, and signed by the magistrate. It says, defendant is detained prior to trial. Defendant is committed to the custody of the Attorney General for confinement in a corrections facility, separated, as far as practicable, from persons awaiting or serving sentences or being held in custody pending appeal. Now, look. Let's go with first things first. First of all, these people are in the custody of the Attorney General of the United States. So calling the district court, the U.S. Marshal's Office, the county jail, the county sheriff, the FBI, the Oregon State Police, and the Sheriff's Administration Office doesn't actually protest the actual part of our government that has the court authority to do anything about it. Now, I understand that it's a sheriff facility, that it's a county facility. And again, I'm not saying what you've done so far is entirely inappropriate. There is some political pressure that's brought to bear if we can make those phones ring. But imagine how much more political pressure would be brought to bear if we were smart about it, right? I mean, the sheriff is actually following court order. He's ordered by this federal court, under the direction of the Attorney General, to confine Ammon and others in a corrections facility, separated, as far as practicable, from persons awaiting or serving sentences or being held in custody pending appeal. This provision, if you look at the history of this provision, is designed to protect pretrial detainees because they have a presumption of innocence. They are not to be punished. And so what the law says and what this court order says is we want to keep them from the general population of other convicted felons, people who are potentially more dangerous, potentially who have ulterior motives and agendas, people who could manipulate them because of the likelihood that they're going to have more access to the outside world, etc. And so as far as practically possible, they're being separated from persons who are awaiting or serving sentences, meaning already convicted, or being held in custody pending appeal. So again, already convicted. So what the order is, it's saying, hey, you need to separate them from the people who are already convicted, because we're recognizing they're not convicted. But there's a weird irony in the situation that Gavin and many of the lovers of liberty point out, which is the solitary confinement is hardly an acceptable alternative, right? And that's bureaucracy for you, right? That's bureaucracy high and low. You don't have to have treason or malfeasance or anything. You just have bureaucracy, and they make dumb mistakes on its own, let alone when there's worse situations at play, which there are, obviously. But here's the point. The federal judge didn't order them into solitary confinement. The federal judge ordered them into the custody of the Attorney General, and the Attorney General is the one who authorizes the stay or the confinement in the county jail. So first of all, I suggest we protest to the Attorney General. And secondly, I suggest we actually say something more intelligent than that we don't like it. Okay? And thirdly, we have to understand if you want to attribute nefarious motives. The government's a big place, right? And not everybody in the government is involved in a secret conspiracy to destroy all lovers of liberty. There are friends of liberty in the government, but we have to give them the ability to act on our behalf. And there are people in the Attorney General's office who are going to be really pissed off to find out that these innocent people are being held in solitary confinement and being deprived of their other rights. So we've got to reach them by speaking responsibly and intelligently with legitimate argument. Now, there's a red flag here, okay, which you probably don't notice. I also looked at the docket. And I looked at every one of these defendants has an attorney. Okay? Every one of them has either a retained attorney. Ammon has a retained attorney. Ritzheimer has a retained attorney. That means hired. Others have CJA appointed attorneys, which are private attorneys that are getting paid by the court. Some have the Office of Public Defender. There's not one attorney who has on file, on the court docket, a motion with the court challenging these detention conditions. There's no evidence of a writ of habeas corpus. There's no evidence of a motion under the federal statute that the judge is relying upon to hold them. There's no motion under the 8th Amendment. There's no motion under the 5th Amendment. There's no motion under the Oregon State Constitution, meaning while these people are being held in solitary confinement, the only people who can represent them in court before the district court is their attorney that they freely choose. Now, they might not like their attorney. They might not have a good attorney. I've been working with several people to try to help make that happen. But my friends, if we're going to protest, one of the questions we need to do is, how about we get on the phone with the attorneys for these patriots and say, hey, why aren't you helping get these people out of solitary confinement? What's the strategy here? Because what if there is a strategy? What if they are doing something and there's a reason they haven't filed that motion? In other words, the power of the people and the power of our protest is so much more magnified and helpful when it's coordinated with the other people who are trying to help. And then if we find that these attorneys are incompetent, that they haven't talked to their clients, that they're not doing their clients' bidding, we can bring pressure to bear to make sure they get competent legal representation. You see, here's the point, my friends, and I'm going to make this point again. I've made it before. I'll make this point to my friend Gavin because he's wrong about an issue. And my friend Ammon, who actually I'm tempted to drive up to Oregon and figure out if I can see myself. They're wrong about an issue. The liberty movement is wrong if you believe this one issue. The whole system is not without relief. The system the founders set up is resilient. And even though it is heavily laden with corruption and bureaucracy and overstretch and tyrannical leaders and corruption in finance, all these things, the system is resilient, but it only works if you use it. Gavin said in his video, there is no justice, there is no due process in federal courts. That is not true. That is a cop-out. That's a cop-out by a discouraged person and a discouraged group of people who haven't been able to find it. It is harder than it should be to find due process. It is harder than it should be to find justice. It is harder than it should be in the system our founders gave us. But it is not destroyed. It is not gone. And here's the point, my friends. If it is true, let's check our hyperbole. Okay? Go look that word up. You might need to know what that means. Let's check our hyperbole. If you really believe that the system is led by an orchestrated conspiracy of treason, Gavin even mentions treason. If that's true, then the only moral option is to opt out and start shooting or strategically planning that. And I'm telling you from personal experience, some of you know my background. I have fought in federal court for years, and I know firsthand, at least through my experience, of some of the difficulty. And I have won. There are good men and women who still believe in the Constitution of the United States, who are dedicating themselves in the system, in the justice system, in the court system, in the law enforcement system. And we have to enable them to help steer this thing in a different direction. The revolution, the liberty revolution, has to be powerful enough that we don't just knee-jerk, easy response, temper tantrum, and exert all of our power and influence in really unpowerful ways. So I want to supplement this idea of a call to action. I want to supplement this idea of getting patriots in solidarity to help get these men out of solitary confinement. Number one, let's put some pressure on the Attorney General of the United States to explain why there's not a better alternative than solitary confinement. Okay, because under the law and under his sworn oath, he's got to answer to us. Now, he may not, but it's not an out-of-bounds demand. A public demand that he answer and explain why the court gave him authority to protect these pretrial detainees, not to punish them. They are not to be punished. And so we can hold him accountable and explain, why aren't you providing a better form of detention? Now, that might help, you see, because the attorneys have to make these arguments challenging detention. And the law challenging detention says that the court has to use the least restrictive means available to protect the public and ensure their attendance. Well, here's the next thing. Well, Mr. Attorney General, you're telling me that solitary confinement, 23 hours a day, is the least offensive, least burdensome way to guarantee these men will be safe, and the public will be safe, and that they'll be at trial. See, we start forcing them to answer. And then they do however they treat those. If we write letters, if we send faxes, if we send emails, if we speak respectably as legitimate citizens with no threats, with no harassment, with no intimidation in terms of unlawfulness, we simply as citizens are concerned about fellow citizens being held in solitary confinement. If we articulate that responsibly, well, then they might have to respond, you see, and that can open up doors for their attorneys to make arguments. You see, I want to win. I don't just want to be a liberty speaker, no offense, and I don't just want to be a liberty spokesperson and advocate. I don't want to see our people just win an occasional media moment. We've got to win. And when we win using principle, we pave the way for future victories. But when we just rant and rage, even our short-term victories fade into a pattern of defeat because it doesn't pave the way for any future successes. So here are my questions. Before I am going to call anyone, I'm going to contact the families and ask them to contact the attorneys, because the attorneys don't need to be burdened with 300 phone calls. Why aren't their motions on file challenging the conditions of their pretrial detention? And then, if that doesn't go anywhere, we escalate it to the next level. But that by itself could be helpful. The second thing I'm going to do, and I've already started to do, I've started to research. Tonight, I'm personally reading Farmer v. Brennan, a 1994 Supreme Court decision. I'm reading Magluta v. Samples, a 2004 decision. I just finished reading Bell v. Wolfish, a 1979 decision. I'm reading an overturned decision in New York in 1977 challenging pretrial release conditions called U.S. ex rel. Wolfish v. United States. I'm reading a lot of other cases. I'm reading Rem v. Malcolm. I'm reading Anderson v. County of Kern. I'm reading True Blood v. Washington State Department of Social and Health Services. You may not want to go read all those legal cases, but I am getting myself informed so I can understand, well, does the Eighth Amendment have anything to do with this? Because it's not really cruel and unusual punishment because they haven't been punished. Well, would that be cruel and unusual to punish men who haven't been convicted? Oh, that sounds like due process. I wonder how the court has previously addressed due process issues. I'm wondering what's the appropriate mechanism to fight this. So I'm going to use my talents, and I will publish on Free Capitalist page on Facebook, and I will supplement Gavin's call to action. Now, if Gavin and the Friends of Liberty who already follow Gavin and his brother and others who are doing a great job of building awareness and keeping a voice alive for liberty, if you want to continue to encourage people to call all these numbers, we'll look up the Attorney General's number in Washington, D.C. And why don't you, before you publish a bunch of numbers on the internet, why don't you call him up and say, who would I talk to express my concern about this? And then let's publish that number. Now, you may say, well, I don't need to ask their permission. I know you don't need to do anything. But do you actually want to get these guys out? Because if you do, you've got to give the good people who you might encounter along the way a chance to add their strength to ours. Maybe it's all futile. Maybe the courts will say no. Maybe these guys are stuck in solitary confinement for the next several years. I refuse to believe that. But even if that's true, we have a bigger battle. There are more people, more injustices, more causes. And if we use our brain and we train the liberty movement and we organize ourselves in a way to advocate responsibly and respectfully, what we'll do is we'll make it harder for our enemies to dismiss us as a bunch of knuckleheads or a flash-in-the-pan angry mob. I really believe in the liberty revolution, not a flash-in-the-pan angry mob. And to that end, we must up our game, my friends. As I say and have said for many years, we must wake up, turn our brain on, make a commitment, dial it up. Quit using fake quotes. Quit using half-thought-through, emotional expressions. Let's up our game. Let's help each other. If you want ideas and suggestions, what if we even brainstormed? Why don't we reach out more? That's my invitation to all of you. warm regards. I'm missing Liberty Reef. I'm actually away from home, but I wanted to touch base with all of my friends out there in Liberty Land. So from the Free Capitalist, got my warmest regards, and hope you'll stay tuned. Take care.